here is the first part of the interview I recorded with MC Pressure of the Hilltop Hoods from Adelaide in South Australia. I'll just ask you a little bit about the history of the band. My first exposure to quality hip-hop with the message was in 1992 when I first heard Public Enemy on Triple J radio.
Yeah.
And I can't help but wonder what you guys were up to then, because I know you formed around 1991. And can you take us back to the early 90s and fill the listeners in on the state of Aussie hip-hop when you were first starting out?
I was in the middle of my high school in 92, but me and Suffer met in high school in about 91 and sort of finished up there at about 95. I guess hip-hop was going through a bit of a boom period then due to groups like Public Enemy and Run DMC and a whole lot of others. Hip-hop really, I guess from my opinion, came into its golden era in that sort of early to mid-90s sort of period, and it was very closely sort of in conjunction with a lot of breakdancing and graffiti writing and that type of thing, and the culture kind of took off and gradually sort of grew and grew until by the time we got to about the 2000s, there was actually a sort of gang of different artists in Australia making prolific music and quality music and starting to really get some major airplay attention and sell some records and only finally getting signed to major labels. The Australian music industry has always been very rock and roll dominated, so it took a long time for Australian hip hop to break through. But I mean, now it's really cemented its position as a sort of a pretty serious genre, especially amongst the youth. So, but, it's got a bright future.
That's right, and I was just curious too, looking back on whether there was anything particular about Adelaide that was you're leaning towards a fertile scene, or was it similar in other cities in Australia at the time?
I guess there was a few. I think this that started the movement off. It was really sort of Adelaide, Melbourne, and Brisbane seemed to sort of 10 years ago have strongest hip-hop scenes. There was a bit going on in Sydney, but Sydney was such a large city, it was a little bit disjointed. There's some stuff happening in the western suburbs, and there's a little bit happening in the inner city. But I think those three cities are responsible for the push. And then, other acts like all the Syllabolics and Downside crew sort of emerged from Perth until, at the moment there's like a lot of good hip-hop coming out of every city now. So it's a more united front these days than it was back then. But
yeah. That's excellent. Can you recall a moment when you realised that the Hilltop Hoods were a career proposition and that Australian audiences were hungry for homegrown hip-hop? Was there a real moment in time you can look back on and know, yeah, this is it?
Yeah, there is actually. It wasn't until we released the album in 2003 called The Calling. Up until then, we sort of used to get a couple of hundred people to shows, which was cool. We used to put on our own shows and work pretty hard. But when we released that album, a national broadcaster in Australia called Triple J picked the album up and actually played the single, which was the first time we ever really got any serious national radio play. And we put on a launch for the Calling in our hometown of Adelaide, and sold like 2,000 tickets, and we were like, holy shit, you know what I mean? This is serious now. Like, people actually coming to our shows, and it kind of just blew up from that point onwards for us, and we started getting invited to festivals to play to sort of massive crowds of in front of 20,000 people, and it all kind of just gained momentum and went on from there for us, and we kind of haven't looked back since that point.
Yeah, exactly. And now it's full steam ahead with number 3 in the Hottest 100 and a new album and a new tour. You just wrapped up a big tour of Australia not too long ago?
Yeah, we just finished a 25-show tour, and then we've sort of done a gang of festivals over the holiday sort of Christmas period over here, and now we're in the middle of a Big Day Out tour, which is the biggest Australian music festival in Australia. So yeah.
That's right, and for the listeners, definitely Australia has got a deep rock and roll heritage, and so bands like the Hilltop Hoods they really are, even at this point, quite pioneers. And Canadian audiences are really going to benefit from hearing them at a great moment in their time. I just ask you a little bit about the history of the band. My first exposure to quality hip-hop with the message was in 1992 when I first heard Public Enemy on Triple J radio.
Yeah.
And I can't help but wonder what you guys were up to then, because I know you formed around 1991. And can you take us back to the early 90s and fill the listeners in on the state of Aussie hip-hop when you were first starting out?
I was in the middle of my high school in '92, but me and Suffer met in high school in about '91 and sort of finished up there at about '95. I guess hip-hop was going through a bit of a boom period then due to groups like Public Enemy and Run DMC and a whole lot of others. Hip-hop really, I guess from my opinion, came into its golden era in that sort of early to mid-90s sort of period, and it was very closely sort of in conjunction with a lot of breakdancing and graffiti writing and that type of thing, and the culture kind of took off and gradually sort of grew and grew until by the time it got to about the 2000s, there was actually a sort of gang of different artists in Australia making prolific music and quality music and starting to really get some major airplay attention.
We play that here on the show.
Oh, cool.
And I know that you've rhymed about the Rockies of Canada in the song Dumb Enough. And I was just wondering, Canada must have been in your conscious for quite a while. And how did your first tour of Canada come about?
The first time we came to Canada was in 2006. But we only came and did a couple of shows in the snow during the winter season because there was some Australian guys working up at a venue there and they wanted to get some Australian music and they invited us over and we happened to be going to London to do some shows anyway. And being that Australia is so far away from the rest of the world, we were like, well, if we're going to London, we may as well go to Canada because compared to Australia, that's almost next door to each other.
Yeah.
So we sort of did a tour in London and then stopped over in Canada. It was more of a holiday for us than anything else. That was the first time we came. We came back last year.
Yeah.
And we did our first proper national sort of tour across Canada last year as support for an artist there in Canada called Classified. And that was the first time. That was a run of 9 shows. That was the first time we sort of played across most of the states. You know, we started in BC and ended up in Ontario and sort of did Alberta and a lot of the states in between. So that was the first time we got a taste of doing a proper national tour.
Oh, great. And so this upcoming tour is your first main headline tour? Yes, it is. Yep. Yeah, and I guess you're excited about heading up to Whistler as well. I guess you have quite a large audience up there, given the high proportion of Australians who tend to live and work up there.
Yeah. Well, it's like half Australian up there pretty much these days, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Well, I'm sure we'll have a bit of fun up there, but I think to us the most important thing and the most enjoyable thing is actually going to sort of parts of Canada, you know, that don't have a gang of Australians there and sort of bringing our music to Canadians. There's not much point in going all that way just to play to Australians. So we're more looking forward to coming there to play to the native Canadians.
Yeah, up through Calgary and Edmonton and all those sort of places. Yep.
Yeah, and the shows are selling really well up there, which is cool because there's not many Aussies up there. And then we're going across to Ottawa and Toronto as well. So.
Oh, that's great. I just wanted to ask you about the arts community. Here in Vancouver this past year, there's been quite an uproar in the arts community in regard to government cuts to arts funding. But I see that the Hilltop Hoods have had a lot of success partnering with the South Australian government with the Hilltop Hoods initiative. Can you tell listeners about this? It's really positive. Yeah, well,
in 1999, when we released our first studio LP, we actually received an arts grant for a few $1,000s to help us market and promote an album that we were basically too poor to promote at that time ourselves, and we weren't signed to a record label. We were doing it ourselves. So in 2006, after our album The Hard Road sort of achieved critical acclaim and went platinum, we decided to actually start our own grant. We called it the Hilltop Hoods Initiative, which was basically a gift of $5,000 that was decided by a panel of people that we'd selected to choose. Like, basically, the artists had to submit a demo, and they had to be an artist that had never released anything commercially before. And it was a grant to help in the production and manufacture and distribution and marketing of an album. And so that's been going since 2006 now. So we've had 4 winners over the years, and we've just actually made that grant go national now and partnered it with APRA, which is the Australian Performance Rights Association, which is a sort of a royalty collection agency in Australia.
Right.
Who have doubled the grant and taken it national, and they're sort of helping us promote the grant stuff now. So it's now a national grant for $10,000 every once a year for up and coming hip hop artists.
Wow, that's great, and the Hilltop Hoods initiative. That's amazing. Thanks for filling us in on that.
Just a way for us to sort of give back to sort of the industry and scene that sort of helped us back in the day when we were struggling. So hopefully we can help a few artists sort of get up on their feet and achieve something they wouldn't have been able to if they hadn't have sort of had access to that grant.
Yep, absolutely. And on that note, what other Aussie hip-hop artists would you recommend for Canadian listeners to check out?
Okay, I guess on my short list, there's a solo artist called Vince who's had one LP out and is currently working on the second. Is definitely worth checking out. The group called Funkors, which is Funkoars, if you're wondering, who have got 3 LPs now. They're really sort of at the top of the hip-hop game, in my opinion. Crews like Downside, Phrase, there's a gang. I could list many more, but maybe start with those.
Oh, excellent. Well, we'll definitely play some of those here on the show in the coming weeks. And I'm really curious, MC Pressure, what's next for the Hilltop Hoods after this tour, when you get back to Australia?
After our Canadian tour, we pretty much get back in start of March. We're working on a DVD, which is going to be the last sort of 2 years of our lives, the making of State of the Art. The touring through Australia and worldwide of State of the Art, and a whole lot of other antics in between. So we're going to put that DVD together throughout sort of March, April, and then I'm going on holidays.
Much deserved, definitely. You've been doing a lot of late.
We'll have been on the road for 10 months straight by the time we get back from Canada. So.
Oh, wow. And just on that DVD note, will you be recording, like on this tour, will you have you'll have some cameras recording all your exploits and antics?
We are. We're recording the entire Canadian tour for the DVD.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, I sure am going to look forward to seeing you play here in Vancouver. You are playing here in Vancouver on the 10th of February at the venue.
Yes.
And listeners, we'll be playing a lot of Hilltop Hoods here on the show before that and after. And some more Aussie hip-hop. We've just got some great recommendations here from MC Pressure. Thanks so much for calling through to the show today. And
thanks, mate.
Hope you have an incredible tour. I know you will.
I'm sure we'll have fun. Thanks for your time, man.
Ah, no problem.
Hi, this is Mick from Bell Sebastian, and you're listening to CiTR 101.9 FM.